Maya had no clue someone was observing her. A billionaire transformed her life in an instant. And welcome to Heartstrings Tales. Please share, where are you tuning in from? Maya Clark was a young woman with aspirations that seemed too grand for her simple life. At just 23, she worked tirelessly at a shabby diner in the heart of New York City. Annie's Cafe, with its broken windows and flickering neon sign, reflected Maya's own challenges. The grimy walls, old booths, and the constant buzz of the coffee machine seemed to mirror her silent frustrations. Yet, despite it all, Maya had a special talent. She could make anyone feel acknowledged. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a confidant, a source of solace for customers who came in, worn out from their own lives. She had a knack for making them feel significant. Despite working exhausting shifts for little pay, Maya found a quiet happiness in her compassion. Every night after her shift, she'd gather any leftover food from the diner and distribute it to the homeless people she encountered on her way home. To her, it was a small gesture, a habit, but to those she helped, it meant the world. One particularly chilly evening, with rain pouring down relentlessly, Maya hurried home, pulling her thin jacket tighter. As she passed a bus stop, she noticed a small figure huddled under the shelter. It was a boy, no older than 8, his clothes soaked, his teeth chattering from the cold. Her heart ached as she saw his pale, frightened face. "Hey there," Maya said softly, kneeling beside him. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" The boy looked up at her, his big brown eyes full of fear. "I don't have anyone," he whispered. "I'm hungry." Maya's heart broke at his words. Without hesitation, she offered him her hand. "Come with me," she said, her voice warm. Despite the pouring rain and her own exhaustion, she led him back to the diner. The warm light from inside seemed to beckon them. Once inside, Maya wrapped the boy in a blanket and served him a steaming bowl of soup. His eyes lit up as he ate, and Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. What Maya didn't realize was that she was being watched. Across the street, in a sleek black car, sat Daniel Carter, a businessman who had everything money could buy, except for the one thing he never knew he needed. As he sat in the car, his gaze followed Maya as she took the boy and fed him and showed him kindness. There was something about her, something so pure and selfless, that left him speechless. "Who is she?" Daniel murmured to himself, his mind racing. For the first time in years, he felt something stir deep inside him, admiration, curiosity, something more. The days that followed were a blur for Maya. Between her double shifts at the diner and taking care of her younger brother Ben, who relied on her to cover his school fees, her thoughts barely had time to settle. She didn't think much of the homeless boy she had helped, though the memory of his smile lingered in her mind, a soft, comforting reminder of why she did what she did. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter couldn't shake the image of the young waitress. Her selfless act had made a lasting impact on him. He was a man who had everything, wealth, influence, and power. Yet something about Maya's warmth and kindness stirred something within him. He found himself unable to focus on anything else. The memory of her feeding the boy, her quiet determination, filled his thoughts day and night. Determined to learn more about her, Daniel decided to pay a visit to Annie's Cafe. He arrived just as the late afternoon light began to dim. The street outside bathed in the soft glow of the city's fading daylight. As he stepped out of his sleek black car and approached the diner, he couldn't help but feel a strange sense of anticipation. This wasn't just another business meeting or social call. This was different. The bell above the door jingled softly as he walked in, and Maya, who was balancing a tray of plates, looked up. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, something flickered in her gaze, a quiet recognition, though she didn't know why. Maya greeted him with the same warmth she extended to all her customers. "Welcome to Annie's Cafe," she said with a bright smile, her voice cheerful despite the fatigue in her eyes. "Take a seat wherever you'd like." Daniel stood frozen for a moment, unsure why he felt so drawn to her. There was something about her that was unlike anyone he'd ever met. He chose a corner booth, his gaze following her every movement as she worked. Maya, lost in her routine, continued to serve customers, offering refills of coffee, laughing gently with regulars and ensuring that each person felt welcomed. What struck Daniel was the way she seemed to be fully present in each moment, her kindness flowing effortlessly from her, no matter how tired she seemed. He had seen people like her before, selfless, caring, but something in Maya's quiet humility was different. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She wasn't seeking recognition. She simply was kind. As Daniel ate his meal, he watched her with admiration. She paused occasionally to check on a lonely older man or help a young mother juggle her kids and bags. There was no question in his mind now. Maya Clark was extraordinary. When his meal was finished, Daniel paid the bill, his mind still occupied with thoughts of the waitress who had captivated him. But as he left, he did something that no one would have expected. Slipping an envelope under his plate, he walked out of the diner without a word, his mind focused on the image of Maya as she worked, her kindness filling the air. Maya didn't notice the envelope until she cleared the table, still wondering about the mysterious man who had caught her eye earlier. Inside the envelope was a stack of crisp bills, far more than any tip she'd ever received. Her hands trembled as she counted the money. Her heart raced, her mind trying to make sense of it. Why would someone leave her such a large amount? Who was this stranger, and why had he chosen to leave her this gift? Maya stepped outside in search of him, but the sleek black car was gone, and there was no sign of the man. She stood there for a moment, her thoughts swirling before heading home, still clutching the envelope in her hand. The next morning, Maya couldn't shake the strange encounter. As she tied on her apron and prepared for another long shift, her mind kept drifting back to the envelope, to the crisp bills and the handwritten note that had come with them. The money was enough to change her life, to pay off debts, to take a breath and think about something more than just surviving. But there was no contact information, no explanation, and Maya couldn't help but feel conflicted. She had grown up believing that people didn't just give away money for nothing. It wasn't in her nature to accept charity, no matter how much she needed it. And yet, the sincerity she had sensed in the brief interaction with a stranger, the man who had quietly watched her at Annie's cafe, made her heart race. Could he truly just be a philanthropist? Or was there something more to this? Her day at the diner was busy as usual. The regulars filed in, their familiar faces bringing a sense of routine and comfort to the atmosphere. Maya was kept on her toes, balancing trays, refilling coffee cups, and making sure each customer felt attended to. The thoughts of the mysterious benefactor were pushed to the back of her mind, buried under the constant stream of orders. Around midday, just as the restaurant was filling up, a tall, sharply dressed man entered the diner. Maya glanced up from her work, her eyes briefly meeting his before she returned to taking an elderly couple's order. She didn't think much of him at first, just another well-dressed business type, likely passing through for a quick lunch. But when the hostess whispered in her ear that the man had asked for her to serve him, her curiosity piqued. Maya turned toward the man, her heart skipping a beat as their gazes met again. For a moment, she felt as if she recognized him, though she couldn't place why. Something in his expression felt oddly familiar, but she quickly dismissed the thought. She approached his table with her usual friendly smile. "Good afternoon," she greeted him warmly, despite the slight flutter of nerves at her chest. "What can I get you today?" The man, whose sharp features gave away nothing of his thoughts, smiled softly and met her gaze. "I'll have the special of the day," he said, his voice smooth and calm, "but only if you promise to take a break and join me for coffee later." Maya blinked, surprised by the request. "Oh, I'm sorry, but I don't usually take breaks during my shift," she replied, trying to remain professional. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" The man chuckled, a warm, knowing laugh that deepened Maya's curiosity. "Just the special for now," he said, handing her the menu. Maya nodded and turned away, but the odd feeling of familiarity lingered. She couldn't shake the sense that there was something important about this encounter, but she couldn't put her finger on it. As the meal progressed, she noticed the man observing her from across the room. His eyes followed her every movement, studying her with an intensity that made her uneasy. But what struck her the most was the way he looked at the other customers. Every time she passed by, he seemed to be taking note of how she interacted with the people around her. He watched as she smiled at an elderly couple, chatted briefly with a lonely regular, and gently helped a frazzled mother keep her children entertained while they waited for their food. Maya was used to being observed by customers, but something about this man's attention felt different. It wasn't just casual interest, it was like he saw something in her that no one else did. When she returned with his bill, he handed her a credit card without saying much. She turned to leave, but he stopped her before she could go. "Wait," he said, his voice a little softer than before. "There's something I'd like to ask you." Maya paused, turning back to him, her brow furrowing slightly. "Yes." The man leaned forward, his eyes locking with hers. "Do you remember helping a homeless boy on the street last week?" he asked, his voice steady but filled with an underlying curiosity. Maya's heart skipped a beat. "Yes," she said, surprised. "How do you know about that?" He smiled faintly, his expression thoughtful. "Let's just say I saw something that day," he replied. "I saw a young woman who went out of her way to help someone in need. I was impressed by your compassion." Maya blushed slightly, feeling embarrassed. "It was nothing," she said, her voice soft. "He needed help. I just did what anyone would do." The man shook his head. "Not everyone would have done what you did," he said firmly. "Most people would have walked by without a second thought." He reached into his wallet, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and handed it to her along with the bill. "This is for you," he said, his tone serious. "Open it after I leave." Maya stared at the envelope, confused but too polite to refuse. The man stood, gave her a last smile, and walked out of the diner, leaving her to wonder what was inside the envelope. Her curiosity got the better of her, and she quickly unfolded the note after he was gone. Inside was a check for $50,000. Maya's hands trembled as she counted the zeros, her heart racing in disbelief. There was also a short handwritten note. "Asterisk, your kindness has inspired me. Use this to create the future you deserve." Asterisk, her breath caught in her throat. She couldn't believe what she was holding. This was more money than she had ever seen in her life. But who was this man? Why had he given her such an incredible gift? She rushed outside to look for him, but the sleek black car was nowhere in sight. The street was empty. Maya stood there, her mind spinning, clutching the check in her hands. Maya's life felt like it was spinning out of control, and yet, in the midst of it all, there was a strange sense of clarity. She had always dreamed of a better life for herself and her brother, but the reality of their situation seemed so far out of reach. Now, with $50,000 in her hands, her world had shifted in an instant. The money could pay off their debts, ease the weight of her burdens, and give her a chance to breathe. But as grateful as she was, she couldn't shake the question that haunted her. Who was this man? Days passed, and Maya couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious benefactor. She'd never seen anyone like him, so composed, so sure of himself, yet so quietly kind. She had been overwhelmed by the generosity of his gift, but a part of her felt uneasy accepting it. There was no way she could repay him, no way to say thank you that would feel like enough. And yet she knew that this money wasn't just a gift. It was a chance to change her future, to turn her dreams into something real. Maya used the money wisely. She paid off all her debts, including Ben's school fees, and put the rest in savings, knowing that the future was still uncertain. But she also began to take a serious look at her dream of opening a small cafe, a warm, welcoming place where anyone, no matter their background, could find comfort, a hot meal, and a friendly smile. She knew she could make it happen if she played her cards right. And yet, as much as she was trying to focus on her goals, she couldn't shake the thought of the man who had changed her life with a single act of kindness. His face lingered in her mind, a mystery she couldn't solve. She wanted to thank him, to understand why he had done this for her. But without any way to contact him, she felt helpless. Then, one evening, just as she was about to leave work for the night, something unexpected happened. A sleek black car pulled up outside the diner. Maya froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew that car. It was the same car the man had been in the day he left her the check. Before she could even process what was happening, the window rolled down, and there he was, the man who had turned her world upside down. He smiled as he looked at her, his eyes warm and kind. "I hoped I'd find you here," he said, his voice smooth and reassuring. Maya's breath caught in her throat. "You again," she said, her voice shaky. "Why did you give me that money? Who are you?" The man stepped out of the car, his tall frame towering over her. He looked every bit the part of the businessman he was, confident, poised. But there was something different in the way he stood there now. Something that told Maya he wasn't just a stranger anymore. There was a connection between them, one that she couldn't quite understand, but she felt it deep inside. "I owe you an explanation," he said, his tone serious but gentle. "My name is Andrew Hale. I'm the CEO of Hale Enterprises." Maya's jaw dropped. Hale Enterprises, one of the largest, most influential companies in the country? She had heard of it, of course, but she never imagined she'd be standing here talking to its CEO. "Why didn't you tell me who you were before?" Maya asked, her voice a mixture of awe and confusion. Andrew smiled softly. "I wanted to see how you would react," he said. "I've spent years building wealth, but I've never met anyone like you, Maya. What you did for that boy, it wasn't just an act of kindness. It showed who you really are." Maya was speechless. She had never considered herself special. She was just doing what anyone else should do, helping someone in need. But Andrew saw something in her that she didn't even see in herself. "I'm just a waitress," Maya replied, her voice barely a whisper. "Why would someone like you care about me?" Andrew shook his head, his eyes locking with hers. "You're far more than that," he said earnestly. "You have a heart that money can't buy. You have the kind of compassion the world needs more of, and that's why I'm here." Maya blinked, still struggling to comprehend what was happening. She was just an ordinary woman, trying to make it through life the best way she knew how. How could someone like him, a billionaire CEO, see something in her? Andrew reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you," he said, handing it to her. "It's a deed to a small cafe downtown. Consider it an investment in someone who deserves it." Tears filled Maya's eyes as she stared at the envelope. She was speechless, unsure how to respond or whether she should even accept such a gift. But the tears weren't just from shock. They were from a deep, overwhelming sense of hope she hadn't felt in years. "I can't accept this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's too much." Andrew smiled gently. "You don't have to repay me. Just promise me one thing," he said, his tone sincere. "Keep being the person who inspired me. Keep helping others the way you always do." Maya didn't know what to say. All she could do was nod, her heart swelling with gratitude. For the first time in her life, her dreams felt within reach. With Andrew's gift, Maya opened the cafe she had always dreamed of, a place where people from all walks of life could come together, share a meal, and find a sense of belonging. She kept her promise to Andrew, always offering a warm meal and a friendly smile to anyone in need. As the cafe flourished, Maya never forgot the man who had changed her life forever. She never fully understood why he had chosen to help her, but she knew one thing for certain. Kindness, no matter how small, could change the world. Maya had been given a chance to create a future for herself and others, all because of one moment of compassion and the generous stranger who saw her heart. Months passed, and Maya's life began to take shape in ways she had never imagined. The small cafe she had opened, Maya's Haven, became a sanctuary not just for the people who wandered in for a cup of coffee or a hot meal, but for herself as well. She poured her heart and soul into the place, making sure it felt like a home for anyone who walked through the door. Each morning, she'd greet the regulars with a warm smile, and each evening, she'd say goodbye to the new faces who had found comfort in the cafe's humble walls. More than just a business, the cafe became a community, one built on kindness, compassion, and understanding. People who had nowhere else to go, those struggling to make ends meet, found solace in the food Maya served and the warmth she gave. It was exactly what she had dreamed of, a place where no one would ever feel invisible, where every person was valued. Yet in the back of her mind, there was always one question. Why had Andrew Hale helped her despite all the changes in her life? She had never heard from him again. He had vanished as quickly as he had appeared. Maya had tried to find out more about him, but Andrew Hale was as elusive as ever. There were no public appearances, no mentions of his personal life in the media. It was as if he had been a shadow, someone who had crossed her path for a brief moment, only to disappear into the ether. Still, Maya didn't dwell on it. She had learned to embrace the gift he had given her, and now her days were filled with purpose. She had a business to run, a dream to fulfill, and the satisfaction of knowing that in her small corner of the world, she was making a difference. One day, as she was cleaning up after a busy lunch rush, the door to the cafe opened, and in stepped a familiar face. Maya's heart skipped a beat as she looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. There, standing in the doorway, was Andrew Hale. "Maya," he said with a warm smile, "I've been meaning to come by for a while." Maya's breath caught in her throat. "You came back," she stammered, unable to hide the astonishment in her voice. Andrew nodded, stepping inside and looking around the cafe with admiration. "I had to see it for myself," he said, his gaze sweeping over the walls lined with art, the tables filled with laughter and conversation, and the people who came and went. "You've done something amazing here." Maya was speechless, still trying to process the fact that he was standing right in front of her. She felt a rush of emotions, gratitude, awe, and even a touch of nervousness. "I don't know how to thank you," Maya said finally, her voice trembling with sincerity. "This cafe, it's everything I've always wanted. I never could have done it without your help." Andrew smiled softly, his eyes twinkling with understanding. "You don't need to thank me, Maya," he said. "You've created something beautiful. I just gave you the opportunity to make it happen." Maya swallowed hard, her heart swelling with emotion. "But why? Why did you do this for me?" she asked, the question she had held on to for so long finally tumbling out. "Why me?" Andrew took a step closer, his expression gentle. "Because I saw something in you that I don't see in many people," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I saw someone who wasn't just going through the motions. I saw someone who cared, truly cared, about others. And I knew that you had the potential to do something incredible with your life." Maya's chest tightened and a lump formed in her throat. "But I'm just a waitress," she whispered. "Just a girl from a small town. I don't have anything special." Andrew shook his head, his gaze unwavering. "That's where you're wrong, Maya," he said firmly. "You have something that no amount of money or success can buy. You have a heart that's pure, and that's what matters most." Maya felt a wave of emotions wash over her. Relief, gratitude, and the overwhelming sense that she had been given something far greater than just financial help. She had been given a second chance, a chance to live a life that was meaningful, one that made a difference. "I just want to keep helping people," Maya said softly, her voice full of conviction. "I want Maya's Haven to be more than just a cafe. I want it to be a place where people know they matter. A place where kindness is the foundation of everything." Andrew nodded, his smile widening. "And that's exactly what you're doing." As the two of them stood there, surrounded by the hum of conversation and the scent of fresh-brewed coffee, Maya realized something profound. She had found her purpose, and it wasn't about wealth or recognition. It was about connection, about touching the lives of others with the same kindness that had once been shown to her. Andrew's visit marked the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. While Maya continued to run her cafe, offering a safe haven for those who needed it, Andrew quietly supported her, not with more money, but with the knowledge that she had what it took to succeed on her own. Over time, Maya's Haven grew, becoming more than just a local cafe. It became a movement, a reminder that small acts of kindness could ripple through the world and change lives in ways that no one could ever fully predict. As Maya looked around at the people she had helped, the strangers who had become friends, and the community she had built, she knew that her journey was far from over. She would continue to serve, to give, and to show the world that even the smallest gesture could ignite a spark of hope in someone else. And though she never fully understood why Andrew had chosen to help her, she knew one thing for certain. Kindness, no matter how small, had the power to change everything.